Hello, my dear students. This is Mr. Abdul Hamid, the instructor of the course Introduction to Literature. I hope you stay at home to keep you and your beloved ones safe. I miss you so much. Welcome today on board in the second lecture of the course, in which we will deal and discuss some of the literary items that you will see, guys. So we will study symbol, imagery, poetry, criteria of poetic text, types of poetry, rhyme, meter, rhythm, and stanza. Let's start with the symbol, and let us start with definition of symbol. What is symbol? Symbol is a person. In literature, symbol is a person, place, object, action, or idea that represents something other than itself, often of more abstract nature. So it is something representing something else. For example, an example of literary symbol could be child in story, dressed in white, used to represent innocence, al-bara'a, or hope, al-amal, like that beautiful and nice child. This is symbol. So its symbol is something stands for something else. So let us examine some of the examples of the symbols. For example, each one of the colors could be a symbol of something. The black color is symbol of evil, and here the color sadness, and that color represents desire, and the white color represents purity, and the red one represents angry, and the blue health, and the green is illness. So you see here, each one of the colors can represent an abstract idea. Another example we'll see in the seasons, the seasons. For example, spring represent birth, new beginning in literature, and autumn represent decline, aging, nearing to death, and summer represent maturity and knowledge. Winter represent death, sleep, hibernation, or stagnation. These are all of them are examples of the symbols that we have defined as something represents something else. Another literary item which is very important to know information about in literature is the imagery. So what is imagery? Imagery is the author's use, author al-katib, use of language that appeals to the five senses in order to help the reader imagine exactly what is being described. So it is here one of the techniques used by the writer, by the author, by his or her language to appeal the five senses, يحاكي الحواس الخمسة, in order to help the reader to imagine, to make us just imagine what he is talking about, what he's describing. And here is the imagery. What are the types of imagery? So we said that the imagery is appealing one of the senses, al-hawas. So the types of imagery is classified or ordered according to the appeal of each one of the senses. For example, look at this picture, the types of imagery. The first type of imagery is the auditory imagery. and it describes what we hear. For example, author or writer describing a song to us in his writing, and it's called auditory. The second type of imagery is the visual and describes what we see. For example, the writer or the author writing about a city, for example, writing about Paris. So by his writing, by his description, we can imagine the picture of Paris, for example, and the sights there. The third type is the tactile, describes what we touch or feel. For example, the author or the writer describing the touch of something. For example, texture, malabis, movement, or temperature. For example, the writer, an example, said the child has very high fever. الطفل لديه حمى ساخنة مثلا بالرواية. So we can imagine that he is describing to us a picture that just what appealing the tactile. The fourth type of imagery is gustatory and describes what we taste التذوق. For sour, for example, sweet, acidic, bitter, salty. For example, when the writer said that you have eaten a sandwich, but it was very salty, for example. So it's appealing the gustatory. The fifth and the final type of imagery is the olfactory. Describes what we smell by our noses. So, for example, describing the nice fragrances or bad or odors, for example. So you can see that the types of imagery is related to the five senses. So when the writer describing a scene or describing something, that thing can appealing our senses, so we can imagine that this is imagery, and we can define or can decide what kind of imagery it is. So this is the imagery. So now, by the end of imagery, we have finished the basics of literature. Now we will move to another topic, which is poetry. And the poetry, as we mentioned before, that literature consists of three genres. The first genre is poetry, fiction, drama. And today we will start with studying poetry. So let us start our journey with that fantastic world called poetry and share. What is poetry? Poetry is an imaginative awareness, وعي تخيلي, of experience للخبرة expressed through meaning, sound, and rhythmic language, and evokes an emotional response. استجابة عاطفية. Poetry most employs what meter, الوزن, and rhyme, القافية. But this is not necessary. Poetry is an old form and has gone through numerous and drastic reinvention over time. So this is poetry. So now, how we can decide this is poetic text and this is not poetic text? So of course there are criteria of poetic text that can decide this is poetic text and this is not. So what are these criteria المعايير. First, relative brevity إيجاز. dense expression التعبير المكثف. express subjectivity الموضوعية عفوا عدم الموضوعية أو الشخصية. display musical quality. be structurally and phonologically overstructured. be syntactically and morphologically overstructured. deviate from everyday language انحراف أو التغيير عن أو الابتعاد عن اللغة الطبيعية. and aesthetic self-referentiality. So these criteria can decide whether this is poetry or this is poetic text or not. So we now we know well what is poetry, and we know what are the criteria of poetic text. Let us move to the types of poetry. The types of poetry. Actually, we have two types of poetry. And when we study poetry, it is useful first of all to consider the theme. So the theme, الموضوع, and overall development of the theme in the poem can decide what kind of poetry it is. موضوعة القصيدة هو الذي يحدد نوع الشعر. And it is useful to keep two general distinctions in mind. First, the first type is lyric poetry, and the second type is narrative poetry. So, lyric poetry and narrative poetry, and each one of them also subdivided into other types of poems. كل واحد من هذين النوعين يتقسم أو إلى أنواع أخرى من القصائد, as we will see in the next diagram. You see here poetry, as we mentioned before, consists of two types. The first type is lyric poetry, and the second type is narrative poetry. And the first type, lyric poetry, consists of categories: the elegy, the ode, sonnet, occasional poetry. And narrative poetry also consists of epic, mock epic, ballad. So we will now study each one of them. First, lyric poetry. What is lyric poetry? Lyric poetry is a comparatively short, non-narrative, قصير وغير سردي، يعني غير قصصي. Poem, قصيدة غير سردية وغير قصصية, in which a single speaker presents a state of mind or an emotional state. Lyric poetry retains some of the elements of song, which is said to be its origin. So, أصله من النصوص الغنائية. There are four types of lyric poetry. As we mentioned, we have four types of lyric poetry. The first type is elegy, قصيدة الرثاء. Elegy is formal lament of death of a particular person. More broadly defined, the term of elegy is used in solemn mediations, often on questions of death, such as grace. So it is a poem, قصيدة, written about somebody who is dead. So about the death of person. So an example ومثال على القصائد الرثائية is قصيدة الشاعر توماس جراي, elegy written in a country churchyard. This is the first type. هذا النوع الأول. The second type, ode. So what's ode? Ode is a long lyric poem with a serious subject, serious جدي موضوع جدي, written in an alleviated style. You have often read odes in which poets praise people, يمدحون الناس, natural scenes أو الأماكن الطبيعية, and abstract ideas أو الأفكار المجردة. Example, مثال على هذا النوع is Wordsworth, قصيدة الكاتب Wordsworth, High Methodity, or قصيدة الشاعر Keats, Ode to Gratian On. The third type, النوع الثالث, which is very important وهو مهم جدا, the sonnet. The sonnet. What is the sonnet? Sonnet is a lyric poem of usually 14 lines, قصيدة من 14 بيتا, which became popular in England in 16th century. One distinguished between two main types of sonnet. هنا علينا أن نميز بين نوعين مهمين من السونيتات. The Italian sonnet, السونيتا الإيطالية, and the English sonnet, والسونيتا الإنجليزية. Italian sonnet is divided into octave, 8 lines, and sestet. الإيطالية مكونة من 8 أبيات و6 أبيات ومجموعهم 14. The English sonnet, السونيتا الإنجليزية, تختلف عن الإيطالية بأنها usually falls into 3 quatrains and 1 final couplet. تقع في 3 مقاطع رباعية ومقطع ثنائي. 3 رباعيات 12 plus 2, it will be 14. This is the sonnets. The fourth type, النوع الرابع, occasional poetry. و occasion means مناسبة, أي شعر المناسبات. Occasional poetry is a poetry written for a specific occasion, لمناسبة خاصة. A wedding, زفاف, or return of king, عودة ملك from exile, من المنفى, or a death. The second type, النوع الثاني. All these types, كل هاي الأنواع اللي قرأناها هو كانت أنواع lyric poetry, الشعر الغنائي. So we will come here to study the second type, النوع الثاني اللي هو narrative poetry, الشعر السردي. الشعر السردي أو القصصي. So narrative poetry gives a verbal representation in verse of sequence of connected events, عن أحداث مترابطة. من اسمه سردي أو قصصي، إذن الشعر يتحدث عن أحداث مترابطة. It propels characters, فيها شخصيات, through a plot, وهناك حبكة. It's always told by a narrator, ودائما ما يقوله راوي أو يسرده راوية. Narrative poems, قصائد السردية القصصية, might tell a story. Types of narrative poetry are epic, أنواع هذا النوع. هناك أنواع فرعية. نوع الشعر القصصي هو الإبيك، الملحمة أو الملحمة الغير مهمة or ballad. First epics, الملاحم أو الملحمة. Epics usually operate on large scale, both in length and topic. They tend to use alleviated style of language and supernatural beings, قوة خارقة, take part in the action, تشترك في قصة هذه القصيدة. Example, مثال Aeneid, شاعر فيرجل بهذا, or شاعر ميلتون, ملحمة شاعر ميلتون, Paradise Lost, الفردوس المفقود. The second type عفوا المثال اللي راح نشوفه الآن هو نقدر نميز الرايم والرhythm والميتر. لاحظ twinkle twinkle little star how I wonder what you are. are and are here هنا عندنا الرايم القافية. اوكي الميتر هو التجديد في القراءة. أما الرhythm هو الإيقاع. الإيقاع هو النزول والصعود أو التوقفات في القصيدة اللي تخلي القصيدة بإمكان قراءتها بسهولة. لاحظ twinkle twinkle little star how I wonder what you are up above the world so high like a diamond in the sky. You see here you can feel the rhyme and the rhythm and feel the meter. So let us now move to another term, poetic term, إلى مصطلح شعر آخر which is stanza, مقطع القصيدة أو جزء القصيدة. Stanza is a number of lines, عدد من الأبيات, usually 2, 4 or more, having a fixed length, لهم نفس الطول, meter, الوزن, or rhyme scheme, ونسق القافية, forming, تشكل a division of poem, جزءا من القصيدة. جزء من القصيدة. Stanza in poetry is similar to paragraph in prose. الستانزا بالشعر هي مثل الباراجراف، هو مثل الفقرات في الكتابة النثرية. الكتابة مالتنا النثرية تكون على شكل باراجرافز، فقرات. الشعر يكون على شكل ستانزاز، على شكل فقرات شعرية. وهذه الفقرات أيضا لها أنواع متعددة حسب عدد الأبيات، لكن راح نتناول فقط أهم نوعين مهمين من الستانزاز. النوع الأول هو الكواترين، الرباعي، ومن اسمه رباعي it consists of 4 lines، متكونة من 4 أبيات. Quatrain is a verse stanza with 4 lines. Example، لاحظ المثال. Who knows how long I have loved you? You know I love you still. Will I wait a lonely lifetime? If you want me to, I will. So you see here 4 lines. This kind of stanza called quatrain. Quatrain. The second type is couplet. الثنائي. Couplet is a verse stanza with 2 lines that usually rhyme. Example, I could ask you to stay, but there is really nothing left but there is really nothing left to say. So you see here 2 lines، مقطع شعري من بيتين. أقرب مثال إلى هذا النوع الكابلت هو ما نسميه بالشعر الشعبي العراقي الدارمي، بيتين من الشعر ينتهي بنفس القافية. لاحظ هنا I could ask you to stay but there is really nothing left to say. قد أقول وقد أطلب منك البقاء لكن ليس هناك شيء يقال. The translation of the couplets. So these items very important. So please try to study them all, and we will have an assignment. عندنا واجب بيتي. Please, for the next lecture, read the following topics. First, steps of analyzing poetry. خطوات بتحليل الشعر. Sample poem to study، ونموذج تحليلي، قصيدة تحليلية. pages بالصفحات 6 إلى 8 في الملزمة اللي موجودة عندكم. هذه المصطلحات اللي تحدثنا عنها جدا مهمة. الإطار النظري اللي تحدثنا عليه الآن إذا ما تفهم وتدرس المحاضرة النظرية اللي تناولناها الآن لا يمكن أن تكون قادر على تحليل القصيدة. فنرجوكم أن تدرسون هذه المادة وتدرسون الواجب البيتي بالصفحات 6 إلى 8 حتى لما the next lecture لما المحاضرة القادمة we will explain نشرح you have background about what we are talking about. Thank you very much indeed for listening and please stay safe. Thank you. Bye bye.